It was just after 11 at night on the 20th floor of a Chicago skyscraper. The marble hallway gleamed under soft golden lights, and the city's amber glow shimmered in the windows. Henry Cole pushed his cleaning cart forward, the faint squeak of its wheels echoing against walls lined with priceless paintings. Then he froze. Through the frosted glass of a conference room, he saw Adrienne Blackwell, the powerful CEO he had only glimpsed in passing. She sat slumped at a table, her manicured hand pressed to her temple, her breathing sharp and uneven. One twitch in her left eye, then another. His chest tightened. He had seen these signs before. In less than a minute, Henry would have to decide whether to break every rule of his job or watch a life slip away before his eyes. Welcome to today's story, a journey filled with emotions, unexpected turns, and lessons worth keeping. If you enjoy stories that touch the heart and make you think, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let us begin. Henry Cole had worked the night shift at Sterling Corporate for 3 years. The job was quiet, predictable, and allowed him to be home when his 8-year-old son, Oliver, left for school. At 44, Henry lived for those weekend mornings when he could make scrambled eggs shaped like dinosaurs, a ritual Oliver had insisted on since the day his mother died. The corporate tower at night was a different world from its daytime bustle. Gone were the sharp clicks of expensive heels and the low hum of deal-making voices. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and polished wood. Security lights cast a gentle glow over the vast marble floors. Henry liked the stillness, the absence of anyone expecting more from him than a spotless hallway. That night, he was halfway down the 20th floor, mop in hand, when something caught his eye. Through the frosted glass of Conference Room B, a figure hunched over the table. It took him a second to recognize Adrienne Blackwell, Sterling's CEO, a woman whose decisions could sway stock markets. She was the sort of person Henry never expected to meet, much less interrupt. Her posture was wrong. One manicured hand pressed against her temple, her breathing quick and uneven. A small twitch pulled at the corner of her left eye, then again. Henry's stomach dropped. Rachel, his late wife, had drilled these symptoms into him during her 15 years as a stroke specialist. She had made him promise, never ignore these signs, no matter who you see them in. He stood frozen at the door, the brass handle cold under his palm. He was just a janitor. She was the most powerful person in the building, but he saw her left arm slide off the table, limp and unresponsive, and that was all it took. Henry stepped into the room. Adrienne looked up, her eyes struggling to focus. Her voice came out thick, the words slurring. "I am fine, just tired." But her left hand did not move when she tried to lift it. He was already dialing 911. The operator's voice was calm and efficient, but Henry barely heard her over the pounding of his own heart. He positioned Adrienne on the floor, tilted her head slightly to ease her breathing, and spoke with a quiet authority that surprised even him. "You are having a stroke. Stay calm. Help is coming." Her eyes widened, not just in fear, but in shock at his certainty. As the minutes passed, the wail of an approaching ambulance grew louder, the sound bouncing off the empty buildings outside. Red and blue lights washed through the glass walls, bathing the marble in urgent color. The paramedics burst in, assessing Adrienne with professional speed. One asked Henry how long the symptoms had been present. He answered with precision. About 4 minutes, left-sided weakness, facial droop, slurred speech, probable clot. Their surprise at his medical knowledge was visible. He did not explain that every piece of it came from Rachel, from late-night conversations where she had quizzed him on scenarios just like this. When they wheeled Adrienne out, She reached for him with her good hand, gripping his sleeve. "How did you know?" she asked. "My wife was a stroke specialist," Henry replied. "She taught me to never miss the signs." 2 days later, Henry was making breakfast when a knock came at his door. The smell of toast and coffee filled the small kitchen as Oliver darted to answer it. Standing there was Adrienne Blackwell, looking smaller somehow in jeans and a simple sweater, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "I never even knew your name," she said. "It is Henry. How are you feeling?" Oliver peered from behind his father's legs. Adrienne crouched to his level, her voice warm. "And who is this?" "This is Oliver," Henry said. "He is why I work nights." Adrienne's smile softened. "Your dad saved my life. Do you know how special that is?" Oliver puffed up proudly. "Daddy knows about sick people because Mommy taught him." The words landed between them like a fragile truth. Adrienne straightened, her expression shifting to something Henry could not quite read. Gratitude, maybe, but also the recognition of a man caring far more than his job title suggested. They spoke for a few minutes, the morning sunlight spilling across the worn carpet of Henry's living room. When she finally left, she asked if she might take them to lunch sometime. Henry hesitated. The gulf between their worlds was enormous. But Oliver's eager eyes tipped the balance. "We would like that," Henry said. A week later, they met at Mel's Pancake House on Old Route 66, a diner that smelled of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. It was the kind of place where no one cared about titles or net worth. Adrienne laughed when Oliver insisted on chocolate chip pancakes for lunch and showed him how to stack sugar packets into towers. As they talked, Henry realized how unusual it was to see her like this, relaxed, smiling, her sharp executive edge softened. She asked about his wife, and he told her about Rachel's work in stroke rehabilitation, how she had taught him that medical knowledge could save lives anywhere, not just in hospitals. He spoke quietly about the accident that had taken her life 2 years earlier. Adrienne reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. "I am sorry, Henry. Raising Oliver alone must be hard." "It is," he admitted, "but we get weekends together. That is something." She studied him for a moment, as if seeing past the surface. "You are a remarkable man, Henry Cole." The words stayed with him long after they finished their coffee. But Henry had no idea that saving her life once was only the beginning, because the next time would uncover something far more dangerous than a medical emergency. 3 weeks after that lunch at Mel's, the 20th floor of Sterling Corporate felt as still as the inside of a church. Henry was making his rounds when he noticed a faint glow spilling from Adrienne's office. It was 2:30 in the morning. Inside, she sat at her desk, pen trembling in her right hand. The neat, confident signature Henry had seen on news articles was reduced to a shaky scrawl. When she looked up, he saw something that made his pulse jump. Her pupils were 2 different sizes, one dilated, the other constricted. "I am calling 911, Henry said. Adrienne's head snapped up. "Number? If the board hears I am having more medical episodes, they will push me out. Wilson Hart has been waiting for this." Henry froze, phone in hand. She was caught between her health and the career she had built her life around. "Adrienne, you could be having another stroke. This is your life we are talking about." Her gaze was pleading. "Please, not an ambulance, no headlines." Henry thought fast. "Let me drive you to the hospital. We will call it routine testing. No drama." She nodded quickly, relief in her eyes. The elevator ride down was silent except for the faint hum of the cables. Outside, the Chicago air was cold and sharp, the streets almost empty. Henry drove through neighborhoods Rachel used to pass on her commute to Chicago General. At one intersection, he slowed. It was where her car had been hit. The memory punched through him like cold water, but he tightened his grip on the steering wheel and kept going. At the hospital, Dr. Sarah Chen, one of Rachel's former colleagues, met them in the ER. Her sharp eyes took in Adrian's symptoms instantly. "These are not stress reactions," she said. "This is a serious neurological issue." Adrian's shoulders sagged as Dr. Chen ordered a full workup: MRI, CT scan, blood work. Henry stayed by her side, the sterile air smelling faintly of antiseptic and old coffee. While they waited, Adrian reached for his hand. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for tonight, but for seeing me as a person." Henry thought of Rachel, who used to say that every patient was someone's most important person. Dr. Chen returned with the scans. The images showed small areas of brain damage, the kind caused by repeated mini-strokes. Adrian's blood pressure and cholesterol had been dangerously high for months. "What has your physician said about these symptoms?" Dr. Chen asked. Adrian's expression darkened. "He said it was executive stress, prescribed sleeping pills, told me to take a vacation." Henry's stomach tightened. No competent doctor would ignore signs like these. Dr. Chen's voice dropped. "Either he is negligent, or this is deliberate. I want to see every test result you have had." Hours later, the three of them sat in a small conference room, surrounded by stacks of Adrian's medical files. Henry scanned the numbers and saw it immediately: falsified blood pressure readings, cholesterol results altered downward, inflammatory markers erased. The tampering was subtle, but enough to hide a worsening condition. Adrian's voice was a whisper. "Hart has been positioning himself as my successor for 2 years. If I die or become incapacitated, he gets everything." Henry's jaw clenched. "We need to go to the FBI." She shook her head. "Without clear proof, Hart will bury me, and who will believe a janitor who claims he saved a CEO's life twice when her own doctor missed it?" Henry leaned back, thinking. Maybe that is exactly why this matters. A working-class janitor sees what a corporate physician ignores. The media would love it. Adrian stared at him. "You are talking about going public. If Hart has been counting on your silence, we take that away," Henry said. "The moment this becomes national news, his timeline is ruined." She hesitated, weighing the risks. The room felt heavy with the smell of stale coffee and the hum of fluorescent lights. Finally, she said, "If we do this, there is no turning back." Henry nodded. Some things are worth it. But when the story broke, neither of them could have imagined the storm it would unleash, or the dangerous attention it would bring to Henry's own doorstep. The story landed like a thunderclap. On a Tuesday morning, the Chicago Tribune splashed it across the front page: "Night janitor's medical instinct saves CEO's life twice." By noon, every national outlet had picked it up. Cable anchors repeated Henry's name with a mix of disbelief and admiration. News vans crowded the curb outside his modest apartment building. Every time Henry stepped out, a microphone was in his face. The smell of exhaust from idling satellite trucks lingered in the air. Oliver was shielded at school, but Henry knew their quiet life was over. The most important call came from FBI agent Sarah Martinez. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who had been waiting for this moment. "Mr. Cole," she said, "we have been investigating financial irregularities at Sterling for 8 months. Your testimony could be exactly what we need." Henry's mind jumped instantly to Adrian. "I want assurances about her safety," he said. "She is a victim, not a suspect." Agent Martinez agreed. Within hours, Henry was in a federal building, a recorder on the table, his hands resting on cool metal. The agents listened closely as he described Adrian's symptoms: his late wife's training, and the falsified medical records. Some shifted uncomfortably when he detailed the precision of the alterations, the way each change hid her worsening condition. "I did not save her because she was a CEO," Henry said. "I saved her because she was a human being who needed help." The investigation moved quickly. With Henry's testimony and the records Dr. Chen had secured, the FBI found a trail of payments linking Dr. Patterson to Wilson Hart. The so-called consulting fees were tied to Adrienne's declining health metrics. The money flowed through shell companies, offshore accounts, all designed to keep her just healthy enough to function, but not for long. 2 weeks later, the arrests came. Hart was charged with conspiracy, healthcare fraud, and attempted murder. Patterson lost his medical license before his booking photo was even taken. For Adrienne, the public vindication was swift. The Sterling board replaced its medical oversight policies. Hart's assets were frozen, his reputation annihilated. Yet the victory came with a cost Henry had quietly expected. Corporate cleaning companies would not hire a man whose face had been on every news channel. Privacy was gone. Some nights, he would sit at the kitchen table after Oliver had gone to bed, the glow of his phone screen lighting the hollows under his eyes, reading through emails from strangers, some grateful, some invasive. Adrienne asked him to join Sterling's new employee wellness program, a role created with him in mind. He turned it down. "I think the media changed too much between us," he said in her office. Her control faltered. "Does it have to change everything?" Henry glanced at the skyline through her office window, the lake glittering beyond. "I think it already has. That does not make it wrong." For a moment, they just looked at each other, the air between them heavy with unspoken things. Then Henry left, the door closing softly behind him. Weeks passed. Henry used the proceeds from a book deal and speaking engagements to open an art therapy studio for stroke survivors. The smell of acrylic paint and fresh coffee filled the space each morning. Patients learned to grip brushes, to coax color back into their lives. Oliver became his father's helper, guiding an elderly man's hand as they painted sunflowers together. Then, one Friday afternoon, Henry saw a familiar black sedan slow in front of the studio. Adrienne sat behind the wheel, her silhouette unmistakable. She did not come inside. She stayed for 10 minutes, then drove away. It happened again the next Friday, and the one after that. Sometimes she left a package, once a painting of Henry and Oliver at work, viewed through the studio window. On the back, in her neat handwriting, "What I see." Henry painted a reply, a watercolor of Oliver teaching a stroke survivor to paint sunflowers. He left it by the door the next Friday. On the back, he wrote, "What we become." But this quiet ritual between them, silent visits and exchanged paintings, would become something neither of them could name, yet both refused to end. The weeks settled into a pattern. Every Friday afternoon, Adrienne's car would appear across the street from the studio. She would sit for exactly 10 minutes, sometimes watching through the window, sometimes leaving a wrapped package by the door. Henry never saw her step inside. Oliver grew used to it. "She does not need to come in, Daddy," he said one snowy afternoon as they watched her taillights disappear. "She just needs to know we are still here." Henry looked at his son, the winter light turning Oliver's breath into small clouds, and realized the boy was right. This was how Adrienne chose to stay connected, close enough to see, far enough to protect what they had built from the chaos of public attention. In the studio, the smell of fresh paint and faint traces of turpentine filled the air. Patients laughed softly as they worked, brushes scratching on canvas, paint mixing on palettes. Henry found satisfaction in watching progress unfold stroke by stroke, the same way Rachel had once guided her patients back to strength. He had taken her lessons and reshaped them into something new, something that could outlast him. On the wall near the front door, 2 paintings hung side by side. One was Adrian's What I See, with its sunlight falling across Oliver's face. The other was Henry's What We Become, capturing hope and healing as a boy guided an older man's trembling hand. To visitors, they were simply works of art. To Henry, they were a conversation that never required words. Some Friday afternoons, their eyes would meet through the glass. No wave, no gesture, just a shared acknowledgement. In those moments, Henry felt the same quiet certainty he had on the night he first stepped into Conference Room B. That acting on instinct, on empathy, had been the right choice. There were days he wondered what life might have been if they had met under different circumstances, without the barriers of wealth, status, and media attention. But those thoughts passed quickly, like snow melting on warm pavement. They had found something else, an understanding that did not fit into romance or friendship, but carried the weight of both. Over time, the studio became known for its unique approach. Medical professionals referred patients to Henry. Insurance companies began covering his programs. Word spread that here, stroke survivors found not just therapy, but dignity. One evening, after the last patient left, Henry stood by the window watching the streetlights blink on. Across the street, Adrian's car slowed. She met his gaze for a moment before driving away. He smiled, knowing she would be back the next Friday, and the Friday after that. It was not the ending either of them had expected, but it was theirs, a bond built on moments that could not be undone, sustained by respect and quiet care. Henry had learned that saving someone's life was not always a single act. Sometimes it was the choice to keep showing up, even from a distance. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please share it and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and it helps stories like this reach more people who might need them.